call the meeting to order. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All right. New business?
Can I make a suggestion? At what point do we change the agenda? Make a suggestion for the agenda? Are you still working on the old? What are you on, new business?
New business.
Yeah, can I talk about the agenda itself? Can I make a motion on the agenda?
Sure.
I make a motion that we switch A and B, that we talk about the budget before we start approving expenditures.
Sure makes sense.
Okay. I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so
wait
we're
for one
looking
of
at our
these
budget.
Sunshine issue.
I gave up trying to figure out those long time ago.
Okay, so so we have kind of a new and revamped budget that includes the red cedar, the draft, and it remains a draft. Of course, it's was included in the packet, and I made copies if you didn't have one. Start at the very top, tourism tax reserve. Together, we have collected $82,145 through March 31st. At this point, I am being very conservative and projecting $100,000 in revenues for fiscal year '23. I am hoping that we will exceed that. And frankly, I think we probably will, but I'm still a little cautious. Right now we're looking at 100,000. If you look back into 2020 and 2021, and we had those down years, prior to those years, we did exceed 100,000. So it seems like we're going to be back in that range again. And we do have some revenues that we are anticipating yet in the next 3 months. April, May, and June, which of course isn't shown on the sheet.
Does that go into which column, Keith, Steve?
The revenues that we anticipate yet to receive this fiscal year, yeah, those would go into the fiscal year '22 column.
And how much are those?
Kim may have a better handle on that. We are due the fourth quarter receipts from both hotels, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So at this point, we're at 82 through March 31st. We ought to, frankly, exceed 100. I think that's reasonable. Would you agree, Kim?
Yeah.
I always budget the revenues conservatively. I mean, we could reasonably probably go to even 110 in the new fiscal year. It's kind of up to you all.
When does the fiscal year start?
July 1.
So when do you set the budget? When does the budget have to be set?
It's adopted by the Board of Aldermen June 21st is this year's final date.
Can we adjust it at that time, closer to that time? Well, that's right around the corner.
Yeah. The Tourism Commission recommends a budget, goes to the Board of Aldermen. We have a special meeting on the budget for May 23rd with the board. By that time, I'm going to include the Park Board met last night. They recommended their budget. The tourism really needs to recommend a budget today. Yes. Okay, moving down into Red Cedar. These are obviously guesses. We do expect some donations to come in. We also expect some concession revenues. We do have grant revenues, both. We have one grant through St. Louis County Municipal Grant Commission that has been awarded. I think it's $162,500 is the number. And then we've also had or applied for a Missouri Humanities Council grant. Is that correct? $4,000?
Is a $2,500 grant.
25, right. We're going to go after grants, obviously. And so we think there may be smaller grants out there that we can get. So, we are projecting grant revenues around 170 total. Project fund revenues. What are those? When the Red Cedar project was, when we were awarded the contract, we had to finance it. And so there was $2.5 million in financing. The total contract right now is around $2.25. We hope and are expecting that we will have the final project cost will come in around 2.275. So we are anticipating around 225 in project revenues, project fund proceeds, if you want to use that word instead of revenues, that would be available to us. And we need those monies, frankly. We need those in order to fund the museum exhibits, which you'll see later in the expenditures.
So that's not perhaps cash revenue, it's actually borrowed revenue?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, Kim and I have this conversation often. We're both amateur CPAs. The correct terminology, I'm not sure. It's not a revenue, but it is monies that is available to us and that we must have in our budget in order to fund some of these big expenditures. Kim, by the way, is going to a training tomorrow. Government finance officers group, and she is getting involved in that group, and it's been good. She's brought back information to me, and I told her just actually a half hour ago, I said, if you bring information back from this conference that would adjust some of our budgeting, we're still open to suggestions. So, okay, and then we do have some interest earnings on the monies that we keep in the fund. General fund, we anticipate transfers of around $160,000 into the Red Cedar and to the tourism budget, primarily for Red Cedar. Going forward, as far as reserves and balances, as of March 31st, we had $36,120 in cash and $123,184 in reserve. We do have that partnership payment last quarter coming up. Other than that, right now, fireworks isn't in there. Yes, so those are the two expenditures that we have. So we're kind of zeroing out our numbers. We're not anticipating to be in much better reserve position come July 1. Okay, so into expenditures, we have personnel costs. What that represents is one full-time person plus two part-time at a total hours of 1,600. Only the full-time employee gets benefits, which are health insurance and pension, which is through Missouri Loggers.
And all this has been, so that has any of this been approved by anybody yet?
No.
So when you offered the position, have you offered a position yet?
We have conditionally, yes.
Okay, so in doing so, did you represent these numbers to them?
We offered the position at a certain pay rate, yes.
Without it being approved?
Without this budget being approved?
Yeah, this information, I'm just trying to see where this information came from. If it's, I know when we were at the Presbyterian Church, it was mandated that you had to, give such a percent of, pension and insurance and stuff, and I didn't know the laws, if we're mandated by that or anything like that.
No, I don't think so. Mm-mm.
So where do these numbers come from?
From the initial job posting. Well, let me back up. The tourism, the numbers you see here were presented last meeting to tourism. They have not been formally adopted by either tourism or the board. Yes.
Okay, I know I wasn't able to ask questions last time, so.
Sure.
So I'm asking them now. So we kind of already blessed these last meeting, is that what you're saying?
I think so, yes.
Would you guys agree with that?
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Miscellaneous. The 6,000 is just basically a miscellaneous figure. It's essentially unallocated. Things do come up on occasion, and the commission has at times acted on requests through the years, so that would be the source of funds for those types of requests.
Would an example of that be like the planners are asking for?
Yes.
Or like Tiffany was wanting to do brochures, but I don't know where that ever went.
I don't know where that went.
I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, but I know that we talked about the banners a couple of years ago, and then COVID and things just kind of happened. I still feel like that's something that I hear a lot from people about, why don't we have things up there? Is there a way that we can at least make a note to maybe look into that? And I don't know if that's a partnership. I don't know who's,
I believe that as Steve goes through this budget, if
Okay.
we approve this budget, there will be no money
okay.
for anything
I think
for
so.
2 years.
I
Okay.
agree. I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
So that's why I'm asking a lot of questions,
Okay.
because that this is tourism for the next 2 years, if we approve this budget as it's written. There's not any money for.
There's no, so,
That's why I moved the agenda around. Because already we would be pulling from something to give 1,150.
yeah.
But I need to follow, because I'm not sure the excess of this year, how much of that, I didn't follow that, how much of it goes into next year's budget, so that's.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how that worked, if we end up having more of a booming tourism season and we end up with money
Right, right.
that, let's say, October, November, that we didn't allocate to spend. I'd hate for it to be there and for us to not be in a position to say, hey, yeah, let's get some Route 66 banners up, or,
Yeah.
We can
that's-
always request that the budget be amended.
Okay,
That's.
I know
we
we've
do all-
discussed that before. I
That
just-
happens all the time.
okay,
Yeah, because the other thing is that I think it's important for us to get that list established, so that when we're in situations like this, we remember what our list is.
yes.
And when something happens at Red Cedar, we basically say,
Cut this out.
Right,
Yeah.
what do we do with the list now is, but not just Red Cedar, but different things, so, okay, not to digress.
Okay, moving on, the Red Cedar Expenditures, we just carved those out separately from other expenditures. Building maintenance, utilities, phone, IT, internet, office supplies, general supplies, gift shop merchandise, marketing promotions, professional development, memberships and subscriptions, janitorial. This, I believe, is a reasonable budget to get started. As we move forward, there's going to have to be changes, amendments. These numbers are, admittedly somewhat guesses. We're not sure what our actual costs are going to be when it comes to some of these items. The office supplies, general supplies, those should be pretty safe. Building maintenance should be pretty minimal. We want to have some budget for professional development. Whoever, the director position, of course, we're going to want to have that person attend various trainings, networking, marketing and promotions. We've discussed that number before. It looks like a big number on the surface, but it's really not. It's, I think, about the best we can do as we go forward. We're going to task the director with being as creative as they can be with their marketing promotions budget. I think of the many different areas of the budget, this is the one that we might want to, we frankly need to increase, especially in the early rounds.
Was this presented last meeting as well?
Yes.
And you all agreed with this?
I think that's probably the most important expenditure almost on there. If you want, yeah, if you want people to
So
be,
what
to
do-
know about it, to be able to go
Right.
there, to, I mean, it's almost the most
What do we get for
important.
$40,000? What does that mean? What kind of marketing?
It's really going to be subject to,
That's a lot of money, in my opinion.
Well, I think the number that was used was approximately $3,000 a month,
How
which
much?
really isn't, 3,000 a month, which really isn't very much on any type of
Yeah.
advertising or promotional stuff. I mean, except, social media is relatively cheap, but almost everything else isn't.
If I could add to that. So there's a couple magazines that we would love to be able to be present in. Show Me Magazine is one of them. Many cities from the state always advertise in Show Me. Route 66 Association puts out a magazine that has a pretty large audience. But the ad, I think Steve and I talked about it the other day, like for a back page of that thing is only $200. They get a lot of memberships. That's what they really go after, but the advertising is fairly inexpensive. So we could be in that monthly. We could do
Several
billboards on the
publications,
highway
Lewis.
if you wanted to, which I'm in the industry and I recuse myself from being involved in too much. But I know that you can get a billboard for $300 a month in pretty nice positions with highway traffic that's catching 25, 30,000 cars a day. That's not going to put you in downtown St. Louis. That'd blow your budget with one sign.
right.
Right.
But no, it'll be a marketing mix that is yet to be determined. But we need to be very wise about how we allocate the money and make it stretch as far as we can.
And I think
Because we have to go outside to get the art created, correct?
Maybe.
I mean, I would think that's a lot of the cost.
I've done a lot of that myself.
So, again, where's the 40,000?
Like the artwork for the electronic sign I'm doing.
Approved it, right?
I'm sorry?
we've generally approved it. I mean,
Okay.
Really
there's nothing
approved.
specifically.
Yeah, an
really
estimate of
approved.
cost.
It's kind of a,
I
yeah.
mean,
I'm just, my standpoint tonight is looking at where we want to spend the funds in the next 2 years and realizing that that's truly, we're going to perhaps get some flack, right? Maybe people are listening, watching right now, just to be accountable for what do we think $40,000 is needed for? And you were saying like down the road it's going to be more, and maybe it isn't even enough. I'm not in marketing. I don't know how much things cost at all. I'm just questioning those funds.
There's another thing that we're asking for is branding, a rebranding of the city is not from this budget. But that's $50,000 to rebrand and identify who is Pacific, who are we? And from a professional firm to give us coaching and advice on how to market ourselves much better than we've ever done in the past. So all of that ties in together with a marketing campaign that makes perfect sense it would come from tourism. So once that identification, if that budget is passed, that branding happens, that triggers park board expenses to sign all of our parks according to this branding. Just a big domino effect that happens. And the branding of the city and promoting who we are around the state and region is where this money would go as far as, and in addition to the promotion of Red Cedar.
I mean, just to get involved in a
A lot of
trade
it.
show, you're gonna look at $300 for a booth. You know,
I'd-
and that's not
it's-
even without, probably $600 to $1,000 worth of just having business cards and brochures and things about the,
And all this ultimately is to generate business for our businesses.
The trade show that we're doing next week, 2 weeks, is $7,500 just for the booth.
I mean,
That's nothing else.
I wanna
That's
give
just
you-
the renting of the space.
I want to give you an example of something that occurred, just a conversation I had late last week from a lady who owns a company in St. Louis, and they're buying a business or building here that is suitable for them to move to. It's one of our larger manufacturing plants. So we're talking millions of dollars that she is investing. She's bringing 35 employees with her, and they're moving here. But the reason why it all happened was because they were at a car show years ago, fell in love with Pacific. And the promotion of that event that brought her here then led to millions of dollars and a lot of jobs coming to town. That's why we do what we do.
And I do agree with getting in as many magazines as possible, whether it's, St. Louis has several publications that you pick up from the convention centers at the Arch, and just having a little blurb in there for people that have no clue. But that is expensive.
Madam Chair, I think that Steve and I have talked about the director's role in this, and from what I remember, once the budget gets approved and someone's in place, then that person would bring their ideas to you guys about how that could get broken down and take your recommendations at that time also. So it's not just that they're gonna throw 40,000 out. I think it's
Right.
gonna be more of a,
Yeah.
what's the best value?
Yes.
Well, yeah, because they can't really spend it unless we approve what they're
Right.
spending.
So you guys still approve expenditures. I mean, your personnel, salary and that kind of stuff, of course, anything that's required by state would automatically get paid. But those kinds of things would come back generally.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We have various contractual expenditures. We have contracted with the rodeo, and that annual cost is shown there, $17,600. We have an agreement with the partnership, $50,000 annually. Fireworks, this would be for next year's fireworks show, just to be clear, not this year's, which is already budgeted. Museum design fees. We did contract with Derek Pryor Design. That work is underway. He has submitted one invoice, but most of those fees will be paid out in the coming fiscal year. General Museum Consulting. We did want to put some budget there in case we had a need for just general consulting to assist with the museum. We have previously utilized Dr. Victoria Udy. She's been a consultant to the Merrimack Valley Historical Society, and she could have a role going forward. I think it's important to have some budget there in case we need it for some assistance like that. And then legal general consulting, same situation. We just need some budget, whether or not we use it or not. But I think it's important to have it.
I have a couple questions, of course. So the $2.275 million that the city took out in a loan, does that not cover those last three bullet points? What is that loan for? Is that loan just for structure, or is it? I was kind of surprised to see those three things into this budget.
The three things being the last three.
Yes, the museum design fees, the consulting, and the legal.
Yes, okay, so the finance package pays for the renovation and any sort of capital projects, okay? It wouldn't pay for any sort of consulting or personnel, any of that. It's strictly dedicated to hard capital improvements.
Okay.
But from what you said before, we expect some of it not to have been spent.
Correct.
That's what was in it earlier, that we expect that
Right.
hopefully then that would at least cover some portion of that. Okay.
Okay, and then finally into capital. We will have some IT needs. Those are a little bit undefined. We're going to have a copy or printer down at that location. We're going to integrate the IT into the city's general network, so there's not going to be a need for a server at that spot. We do have a need for a point-of-sale system, and that would fit into that $15,000 figure. I had some preliminary conversations today, actually, with our IT firm about how we want to set this up, and we are going to meet later this week or next week to get a little bit more information to them. Furnishings. 15,000 really should should cover that. I don't know that we have a big need for furnishings in the building, but, we have to buy some, obviously. Desks, there's some, the gift shop, there are counters built into the project, is that correct? Yes. So we're talking about desks, tables, and chairs, that type of stuff. Equipment. What we're envisioning here is at minimum one cooler, kind of a double wide cooler for packaged foods and drinks. We also think it'd probably be nice to have a freezer, ice cream.
Are we interested in getting things used if we can find them used? Because I know a local person just had a small stand-up freezer.
We're going through a guy in Baldwin right now, and we just walked into his place, and anytime a restaurant, a bar, anything closes, he goes in and he buys it on consignment from them and then sells it, and they get a portion. But, you get a $12,000 cooler, and you might be able to purchase it for $4,000
Right,
used, and he goes through and makes sure it works and does everything. But either that or potentially leasing and not buying, so we're not having to deal with the maintenance. And then if we decide after a year, like, holy cow, we need a much bigger cooler, we're really selling this stuff, then we're not committed.
That's smart, because then you don't know what's going to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We might realize that we need 2 freezers and a smaller cooler.
Because you might have donations. I mean, I've got a freezer, not that I'm donating it today, but I have a freezer that I've never plugged in at the venue. You might have things like that. Not to diverse, but I think we can kind of think about stuff like that.
This goes back to that director role, though.
Yeah.
Once the director is hired, we would give this person the budget and say, look, we know we need to buy some equipment. Here's some of our ideas. You give us your thoughts.
Right.
And then come back to us with your ideas. Leasing might be a better solution, sure. And my primary role is to tell them stay within the established budget. If there's a need to go outside it and it's clear and, we just, missed a number, I get it. We can make adjustments. But for the most part, we're just going to say, here's your budget, work within that and do your best to, figure out how to staff the center, put the operation stuff in place and so forth.
So how's that process work? So if they have a budget, they still have to get to the funds. So do they come to the city and we issue money, or do they have a checkbook and there has to be a double signature on it?
Yeah, they would fill out purchase orders. We don't pay until the equipment's delivered and so forth.
But that's
Yeah.
the city handles that then?
Yeah, they would have actually no actual purchasing authority.
Okay, got it.
Yes. Except, well, let me back up. We are going to have to give this person some limited purchasing authority if they need to go out and buy, janitorial supplies.
Right, like a petty cash kind of a
Yes.
fund, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Kind of like how department has now. Just to do general things, we can do that. But anything special, we have to have a PO.
Yeah.
Right. Which is a good thought, because right now our procurement arts does not include the director of tourism in that, in those authorities, so, excuse me. And then finally, last line there, the museum exhibits. 400,000, that is a budget figure. When we engaged Mr. Pryor for this work, he had requested a budget, and we, upon some consideration, gave him that budget of 400,000. Now, how does this work? He is going to design the exhibits. He's going to get them into a form in which it can be competitively bid, and then people go out and bid on actually fabricating the exhibits. And so all that, of course, comes to tourism and then to the Board of Aldermen. So I've not been, Steve, you've been working with Derek. Do you know where he's at on his process?
I just texted him to see if he has a timeline for giving us our first presentation of his design ideas. I know he's close because we met just a couple days ago out there just to look at some of the collections. And his comment to me was, I'm not going to show you the presentation yet. But he said, I'd like to, but It's not quite ready. So I know he's close. So I'd say within a couple weeks.
I
would be a
never even
good
thought
guess.
about that, of what we were going to put in the museum. I never
Oh,
thought
yeah.
about that. So this 400,000 is actually buying old,
It's all the fixtures that would house the museum artifacts. Or-
does it include the artifacts?
No, the artifacts are what's there in the collection already and things yet to come that we just don't even know about. There's a lot of people, a lot of families in our region who have collections.
Right,
That
sure.
we'd like to be able to put on display for a short period of time.
Rotation.
So that gives you something to promote and say, come during the month of January. Well, here's a good example. We already have a diorama, which is really these roll-out kind of hangings that are on a little frame, and you set them in an order. It depicts the life of Ulysses S. Grant. That's coming for the month of December, all right? So that's going to give us something to tout. We've also, this grant that we applied for, this $2,500, covers the cost of bringing in and promoting a live actor who portrays Ulysses S. Grant. That he would be able to give like a matinee to school children and
Oh,
then in the
that's awesome.
evening
Yeah.
to anyone that wanted to come. It'd be free of charge to the public. So those kinds of things we want to do on a monthly or bi-monthly basis at least to keep interests alive. People can come and see, the static displays that'll be there forever, and then they can come and see things that are new. And we want to keep it new and interesting. Attract a broad spectrum of demographics, from young to old, with these different collections coming in. But so we're going to allocate some space for these rotating displays, and that case, that display, is something that Derek is designing
Okay.
into it, as well as, there's some pretty cool stuff he's doing.
Yeah,
And
I'm not that involved. I think I need to get much more involved than what I am, because I've not been in there, and, I may not be, it would be open for us to go in there, but what kinds of things are there that left behind for the building when you said that it would encase?
That are there? Well, it's not necessarily red cedar related things, although that's one of the areas of interest that we want to absolutely tell the red cedar story.
Right, but as far as casing in anything, that we're talking about exhibits that
Right.
we'd be casing in.
And the museum collections that we've had for, actually, since Jeff Titter formed the museum committee,
See, I didn't, okay,
those collections have been
Okay.
building through the years.
okay.
And they've got them archived, accessioned is the right word, I've learned. But they've done a really good job, the museum committee, at getting all of this down on paper to where it's all archived very well.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah, being able to determine what is going to be able to be fit in our limited space, what's the priority of displays, and then some of the collections that that we already have will be part of those rotating exhibits, because that's the space we have allocated,
Right. Plus, that keeps people, like you said, it's a special event, people come back for that.
Right.
Kind of like they do at the library,
Exactly.
yeah. Thank you for that, that explanation.
So if any of you would like to be guest speakers sometime, we're signing you up now. So just know.
Okay, and so moving on down to this transfer outline, tourism has did borrow funds from the city to fund the Bigfoot project and then later the electronic sign. And so we do have an annual payment of $33,333.33 that will be paid in the next fiscal year.
How many more of those are there?
Good question. I believe there's probably 2 left. Is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
One thing, and the budget has been, we've been working on the budget for the last couple of months. In some early rounds, I told tourism, I believe, and I know I told the Board of Aldermen that we had, one of our early ideas was to use American Rescue Plan Act funding as part of the Red Cedar Operating Fund. We have changed our mind there. Kim has been attending recent webinars and trainings on the ARPA funds, and we think they are much better suited for capital projects. And we're now kind of focused on road projects, water and sewer, public safety, police needs, so forth. We, general fund will support, has to, the project, and then all those other revenues we talked about earlier. So, once we get off the ground and running, we're going to rely on tourism and general fund essentially as the two pieces of funding to fund it. And then also, of course, some revenues. One thing that I would strongly recommend, in fact, I'm going to demand of the director, is that they get into some fundraising. And, there's a lot of different ideas how we could approach that, but we're going to have a fundraising element to the project as well. Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Going back to my initial question, why I changed the agenda. So at the end of this year, what will be our total funds projected? 82,796?
Current year.
You're talking about actual receipts?
Just at the end of, just like you're doing here, you have the very last line of the budget, you have total revenue versus expenditures. How much, my question is, from the money left over in the budget, all the money in tourism, how much of that goes into the proposed fiscal year '23 budget, and where is that?
So this budget essentially uses all of our available revenues, both beginning balances and revenues through the year. And at the end of the year, if we hit every number exactly, we'll have $468 left over. That's what this budget is trying to communicate
In fiscal year '23,
at
next
the end
year.
of fiscal year
Yeah,
'23.
right. So there's no money going in from, so we're less than, 2 months from the budget, right? So how much more money do we have this year to spend? Maybe that's a better question.
Our balances, as of March 31st, we're always a month behind. We had $159,304 total in reserve as of March 31st.
Okay, I see that here, okay. So how much of that 159 is rolling over into the proposed budget column?
All of it.
All of it, okay. So that was my point. So the money, that 159, all of the funds we have today are spoken for in approving the budget. And so next year, it's a budget, right? Things can come and go. That was my point. So really, we're kind of shut off today if we approve the budget, because we're already saying we're going to give those funds for the future. We can't fund anything. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're right.
No, and
Candy bars.
And I guess in looking at what we've done in the past years and things that we've done, for the rodeo, for partnerships, for fireworks, that type of stuff, fireworks are a 30-minute process, and that money is costing us, multiple projects that, could have happened. So I guess that's my question is, is in any of these things that we have allocated for next year, is there wiggle room on any of that? I mean, is there the ability for the partnership to do more fundraising, or for us to do a fireworks fundraising this year to allocate money for next year? I mean, I know that they do well with the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and that ended up better this year than expected, but I see where Trudy's coming from. That just basically means that we're going to meet every week for really no reason, except for to meet with the director, because nobody's going to be able to bring anything to us.
Right,
We're
right.
not going to have any funds for any project.
Except for the 6,000 miscellaneous,
Yeah.
if we want to even spend.
Right, and we can say
If we
that.
even want to spend that.
Right.
Because we could
right.
go over budget somewhere, and then,
Yeah, because the odds are, with fuel prices and stuff, they're not going to come down. So these are great numbers, but 6 months from now, they may not be quite.
Exactly, it's a
right.
budget, right, yeah, exactly. So, my point has always been, and I bring this up quite often, is we don't direct our visitors. They come off the highway and it's like, where's downtown? They come off the highway, where's Red Cedar? I heard about all these beautiful parks and all this stuff. And I think I would love to see money, and I have no idea who does that, if the state owns that, if the city owns that, who does, but we need to direct not only our guests, but our citizens of where is everything?
And that was something, I believe, 2 years ago, having signs, throughout town to direct people, parks, just different places as to where you can get around historic downtown.
As I mentioned earlier, that part of the budget request is for this rebranding of our city. And that is something that you want to wait until that happens. And after it's done, then it's going to give you all kinds of a theme about Pacific that you would incorporate it into that signage campaign. And our parks is something we discussed with our park superintendent just this morning, that we would wait on the signage for the parks until that project's done. So it all ties together.
And when are you going to do that? When's the rebranding?
Well, it depends on after this budget allocation. If the Board of Aldermen approve that line item, then we can proceed.
I thought you said it wasn't in our budget. It is in our budget?
It's in the budget request for this year.
This budget?
It's not in the tourism budget.
No, not the
Okay, thank
tourism.
you. It's in the
No.
city budget.
Yes.
Thank you, thank
Yeah,
you.
but that's an essential piece that you want to wait for before you do those signs.
Right, and if it doesn't, I think we should just move on. That's
I
one
would-
thing.
I would agree.
We just wait too long to do things for the time to come, and I
would
just feel
agree.
strongly that, now, that's just my opinion. And I think we should have a sign created, so sorry.
Welcome to my
A
world.
sign created that has a slide in, just like this. A big sign at the entrances, 4 entrances into the city. Slides in and out. These are the activities, this is where it is, this is the date. And we can have the random things, we can have, Casey's gonna have a barbecue this weekend, but just when they come in, these are the activities today, and, kind of like our calendar. And everybody says, oh, it's on Facebook. Well, that's not people driving through, because you're talking about the people coming to Red Cedar, they're driving, they're not gonna be on the computer. And they're gonna be like, just like I love the thing that says we have 15 restaurants in Pacific, I'm going, 1, 2, 3, right?
Yeah, and my daughter did the same thing the other day. She's like, Dad, I think there's 16. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah. So I think we need more direction and directing people to our events and what we offer.
Well, and that was something that we had brought up that we were hoping to be able to do with the sign. And unfortunately, we can't use city funds for something like that to have, Bigfoot open house, because it's, so as great as that is, we're still missing the boat of being able.
Why can't we do that?
Because
It's an advertising of a private business.
Oh, you said that, yeah, you said that a long time ago, yeah.
And we can promote city events. So I don't know any way to get around it.
Yeah.
There's another silly rule that I learned, when we established the sign, I called and asked about it. We can't have any movement on our sign. The company that actually set it up, they had a flag waving, and I'm like, we can't do that. We got to we can have a static sign, or with a flag, but because it is a permitted sign, that's the classification, it says no movement. Now, if we were an on-premise sign, a different classification, like Celebrate Automotive down in Eureka.
Right.
They can have things waving all the time. What's the difference?
And that's
Not
just the
much.
catch-22, is because the people that live in town, they follow the I Heart Pacific, they follow the Pacific Partnership, they follow all of these groups on Facebook, so they get constant updates of events. But the people that are coming into town, they don't know that.
So the partnership, their events, we are now partnered with the partnership on. So therefore, it is somewhat of a city event, and we can promote it. Same thing goes with bingo at the senior center. We give the senior center an allocation, what is it, 10,000, or has it been raised?
I think it's 20.
20,000 now. We're partnered with Tri-County Senior Center. We partner with Bigfoot somehow. I don't know how we do that, but
Well, how do you partner? I mean, is it $1 I mean, seriously, it's for the benefit of the city, and
I
the
understand.
taxpayers paid for that sign.
And it drives tourism.
Yes, so what is it gonna take? I think we need to look at that. We need to
You know,
look at
like
what
if we could
that-
have farmers and vendor market at the landing hub this Sunday, right there as people are
And she
driving
partnered
by.
with you because she's gonna give you $20 for it.
And
I mean, right, is
Understand.
it that simple?
I understand.
Versus saying we can't do it. I think
That's
we
one
need
for
to-
the city attorney.
Are you gonna talk to him? or
I
do we
just
need to
feel
talk
like
to
there's a
him?
lot of opportunity to bring more people into town that we're using tourism funds for entertaining people in town.
Yeah.
Does that
Would
make?
love to do it, but right now MoDOT restricts it, and if there's a way around it, I'd love to know.
Steve, on this budget, there's no reserve. If we spend all that money, we got $400 and some, correct?
Yeah, and that's actually intentional. Let me kind of explain that. The general fund reserve, the general fund transfer, that 160,000, that was what was necessary in order to make this budget balance, okay? And so, that general fund transfer can be amended by the Board of Aldermen. Going into this project, we recognize we have to support it with general fund. And so right now, 160 is the minimum. If the budget needs adjustment, the one place we can adjust is there. And that's it, really. Well, again, we talked about fundraising. There's really not a fundraising line in right now for revenues. We've got to see that. So we're going to have to generate some revenues through the center, but really, general fund is just going to have to support it.
Does it make sense to request more so that we aren't completely strapped?
This.
If they don't like it, they can come back and say, no, you can't have it.
You know, I thought of that. And
Subtracted.
really what I would like to do is get the center running and really understand better what our real costs are, and, you know, kind of refine the budgets going forward. At some point, you know, the general operation and maintenance is right here. Our personnel costs, 113, okay? Turn the page, you get into your expenditures. All those Red Cedar expenditures, those are just general operating expenditures, 75. So 113 plus 75, you're around 190. You know, that would represent to me kind of a minimum number, call it 200, right? In general operation and maintenance. Tourism right now generates 100 to 110 a year. So right there, you know, the city's going to have to transfer general funds into this account in order to run the center. Going forward, I really think once we get on our feet and rolling, I think we'll have a better understanding of how that's going to work.
So your recommendation is to approve this, send it to the city, and then in 2 months or 3 months, when we have some more information, come in and look at it again and adjust it?
Yes, and I think, I hope that this budget is adequate to get started, right? That we can hand the director the budget and say, here's the established budget, here's the basic parameters you have to work within. And then as we go forward, equipment. Let's say that the costs of coolers and freezers and whatever, we're a little bit over budget there. Okay, fine. Then let's find a place to cut somewhere, address that. When it comes to general operations, I mean, you know, there was a lot of discussion on marketing promotions. Once you set that budget, you really need to stick with it. I'm not going to have a lot of appetite myself for expanding that budget. No. I think we just need to hold to it in the early rounds, you know, and just kind of, you know, see where we're at. The one thing I will tell the director is the more revenues we can generate, obviously, you know, the more money we'd have to direct toward other needs. I mean, I do think that this gets us started. And that's really the intent, is to, you know, line out our expenditures, Red Cedar plus the other ones, and then, you know, be able to hand this to the director and have that person go. Once the director's in place, the director will be the primary contact with you all. I'll continue to attend meetings, but frankly, there's a point where if things are running well, director can handle it. I wouldn't need to be that closely involved.
During the last call, the meeting, I was on the call, you had mentioned, if I remember correctly, that someone from this committee will be responsible for that person and be their go-to? Like reviews and stuff like that? I mean, who manages the staff, the three people? If they're sick, if they're in an accident, if they quit, who hires the replacement? Who manages that, the employees?
The director manages the part-time staff. The community development director, Steve Myers, he's the first, the director reports to him and then ultimately to me.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And then two, obviously, reports to the Tourism Commission. Similarly, it's kind of as how I report to the Board of Aldermen, if you will. But from the day-to-day operations, that person is managed by Steve and then myself.
Okay. So would we need to interact with them at all?
We can make that work, absolutely.
I mean, but we don't have any authority over them. We'd have no responsibility for them.
Correct, you don't.
Control their money.
We control their money. Well, we don't. Once it's approved, we don't have any involvement. So I wonder where our committee, we're going to have to focus on future then. Because there
Yeah.
won't be anything to manage.
But won't the aldermen still want our, you better answer that.
Oh, I mean, it's good. No, it's good questions. Let me give you an example. Park board. Okay, we have a park board. The president. The president is a volunteer. Has no certainly no supervisory authority. Now, when it comes to kind of routine items, we've always said, fine, if the park board president wants to contact either us or the park superintendent and say, hey, did you know that the tree fell over here, right? That's fine. But yeah, they have no ability to direct staff. And so, same goes with any of our boards, planning and zoning. The chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission has no ability to, direct staff in the conduct of city business. Now, having said that, my expectation would be that the tourism chair would have that type of relationship with the director. And, it would be, call it a consulting role, if you will. Hey, I'm thinking about having I'm thinking about putting on this fundraising event where we, who knows what, call it a poker run, for lack of a better word. What do you think? And you could bounce that off staff here, and then, sure. I mean, I think involving Jen as a chair, is fine. I would hope for that type of relationship, frankly. You guys said this many times, you guys are in the tourism business, and your input there will be very valuable. I would say for the most part, you ought to limit it to the meetings. You can't, we do want to avoid a situation in which individual board members are saying, hey, do this, do that, or have you thought about this? And then, some other, board member says, I'm not sure about that idea. We don't want this person kind of caught in the middle of that. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, you guys oversee tourism, and your input is very valuable.
Okay. So does anybody else have any questions? I just keep going back to looking at these numbers of our contractual expenditures, and that is money that, that's $17,600 for the rodeo. I mean, are we funding the rodeo? I know that the partnership is doing, they have volunteers and they are managing a lot with that. But that's a lot of money that now we're going to be down to $400. Is there ways that some of these contractual things for the following year, that if people know ahead of time, hey, they might not be able to do $12,000 for fireworks, but now you know this far ahead of time, plan.
I look at it like this. There's $836,000. Let me back out, because that has some other stuff in it. It has grant money in there and stuff. Let's go to the general fund. Where did you have that at, Dave? General fund. My point is, pull a number, and here's the assets. Pull a number. Total tourism and fund revenue, $672,000, 300. Through, not our efforts, we're just people, right? We're just people on a board. But out of that budget that's tourism, we should say, listen, we're always gonna want, at the end of the day, we're always gonna want this much money to do the projects that this board wants to do on behalf of this city, for other things outside of the Red Cedar. We don't want the town to be Red Cedar, because talk about branding, brand it Red Cedar. Because the money that's going into this is a lot of money, right? But I think we need to talk about that and not give it all, and then it goes back to the people that are involved in the budget to say, hey, they didn't approve it.
Well,
We've got
because
to
if
cut
the-
this, or we've got to cut
Yeah.
that.
And the tourism funds come from the hotel stays, but are the people that are going to the Red Cedar, to the rodeo, to, whatever, are they staying in town, or are they passing through town, or are they just going home? We're kind of cutting our own throats by not promoting more stuff to bring people necessarily into the town. I agree with Steve on the marketing promotion. That is huge. Getting in magazines in Herman, getting in magazines in St. Charles, getting in magazines that go all through the Midwest. That is huge, because that brings people not from the area into the area, which they stay, which then puts more money in the tourism.
Sure.
But I feel like we're spending a lot of time and effort on things that aren't going to bring people here staying. And I'm sure the Red Cedar will, it just doesn't, it's hard to process at the time that, now we're going to have people come to us that want to do things to promote tourism in the city, and we're not going to be able to do that.
I just think our group really has many more things that we need to do for the city.
So what are you proposing, or what, like,
I don't-
so what do you,
I'm just talking because I don't know, I just think we need to say, we can't approve all these dollars at once. We still need funds in order to do other things as a tourism board. Like we've talked about the signage and the banners, things that we feel will, there's other things we haven't talked about, right? That will bring people into the city and direct them. We already had the chamber come to us, and I think we gave her butterflies, right? And kind of supporting what she was gonna do. She hasn't come back, but we did verbally get excited about that. Is that something that we really want as well? That we think it's gonna behoove the city to bring people in? Because we're talking another 2 years.
Well, and if the Red Cedar, it doesn't seem like that particular project has any wiggle room. I mean, it's going to need what it's going to need, obviously, if they can get more grants, and there's fundraising, and there's things like that. But, I don't see a lot of wiggle room for money and funds, from the Red Cedar, because if we're cutting that budget, then we're stalling that project, and then stalling that project is a detriment to the community.
I mean, the city doesn't even have to have a tourism group, do we? Do we have to have a tourism group?
Yes.
Okay. We don't have to have a partnership or whatever that is, I don't know. But those are my thoughts. I just think we need to somehow figure out a way to get a little bit more money pulled back.
I think you got an opportunity. If you look back, in 2018, our what do we call it, tourism tax and revenue, looked like it was $111,000. And if you look in 2019, it was $111,000. Then COVID hit and we dropped to 66. So when you look at the estimate of $100,000 for 2023, it's probably, like Steve said, a little light if you take where we are right now at $82,000 and just split it out over 3 quarters, which is what that $82,000 represents. You're bringing in $27,000 a quarter. So you would almost anticipate your fourth quarter is going to end up $20,000, which will bump that up. So you could pick up $10,000 there. A couple other things on here is the revenue estimate for Red Cedar is 13, but the cost is 12, and you're gonna have a markup there where you're not gonna sell it at cost. So that's a number that could, I think we need to take a very cautious approach on this $6,000. That is our miscellaneous, that's who we buy, that's who we give money to until we see where other things come in. And then the last thing is Red Cedar's got 2 part-time employees. You know, I don't know what their hourly rate is there. That's always the worst place. I hated cutting, but sometimes you gotta go there to get over a hump. And
Yeah.
because I would assume staffing there will run with some volunteer staff as well. So
I wouldn't think you'd need it with 1 full-time and 2 part-time.
you won't be able to cover the whole week,
Yeah, I
yeah.
guess so. I mean, if you get a bus coming in, you're gonna have to
Yeah,
have
you'll
those
have to have some
people.
volunteers.
So that miscellaneous, perhaps, I don't want to make a motion, but perhaps we put a line item in the budget. We modify the budget, however we got to do that, to put a line item in for tourism, for the committee, for the Board of Tourism. And we actually build it into the budget. And so if the budget comes out negative, the aldermen are going to approve the negative budget, assuming that, like Steve said, $100,000 is shy. We really don't know, these kinds of things. Maybe we put a line item saying that we need $10,000.
Kim, can you tell us what's in the 12,000 that we've spent this year under miscellaneous? Like what that's made of?
12,576.
Not at the moment.
Okay. I thought that might give us a clue of what we've done
And
in
we
the
did
last
the
couple of years.
planters last year.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
we approved 6,000 last year, but we spent 12,500.
Unfortunately, I
One thing I should say, the budget by law has to be balanced. So I would not, the end result has to be balanced, so I would suggest we do provide a balanced budget to the board.
Right.
So then can we change the name on miscellaneous to whatever we needed to name it, so that this committee has those funds we think that we need?
Or do 4,000 in miscellaneous, or 4,000 in tourism
Yeah.
and 2 in miscellaneous.
And that way, if someone comes to us and wants to do something, then we have the ability to say yes. Because as it stands now, we can't.
Right. Right, until the funds flux this way or that way.
Yeah, I mean, by October, November, we might be in a very different spot after we get through this summer, which I'm sure, knock on wood, will be a good one, but it seems like domestic travel is booming, and I feel like that 100,000 number is a light number.
Because I truly feel too that we should always have enough money left over, like we should have enough money left over this next year to pay for things we're obligated to, and we don't. Going into 2024, we don't have the funds for the salary, we don't have the $113,000 or $114,000 for the salaried people. We don't have the insurance on the building, we don't have the maintenance on the building. We're in the hole for 20, I'm not being the negative Nancy here, I'm just
Well,
trying to
no,
be
and
realistic.
hopefully, we don't spend $400,000
Well, I'm just worried about
on
2020
museum
again.
exhibits.
If
and-
2020 happens again, something like that, and we go into a crisis in this, in this area, what are we gonna do? Who's gonna pay those, you're just gonna lock up, shut down the Red Cedar and,
I would think the city would have to jump in at that point.
I would
because
think,
it's
but I don't
theirs.
know, is that what would happen?
I think the city clearly made a commitment to the Red Cedar when we moved forward with the project, and in my opinion, we have to operate it, of course. And so what I've told the board of aldermen and others is, general fund will have to support it. There's really no other sources. Tourism is a piece, but it's frankly a small piece. If you look at some of the obligations you have right now, and the rodeo was contracted, partnership is a 3-year agreement, but just those 2 alone is 67.6. It's 2/3 of your revenues, right? So general fund has to operate it. And again, we go back to revenues. It's going to have to generate revenues and fundraising. To the points, kind of the overall point of freeing up more funds for the tourism to have to spend on other items, I don't disagree at all. I think this would be a great conversation to have with the director. And, based on this discussion already, once that director comes aboard, we would tell them, look, the Red Cedar is job one. We get that. We're going to have to operate the center, but you are the director of tourism, not the director of the Red Cedar. And so we want to, encourage that person to see the bigger picture. We are fortunately in pretty good space right now with our general fund. We really are. And so we do have the ability to support it. And, we do have a new mayor and several new aldermen, and it's kind of an unknown exactly how they would view tourism, frankly. But, I wouldn't discourage you all from, making your requests and, just kind of see how that shakes out.
Right.
Well, and I think encouraging, that, okay, so you have $10,000, but, if you only spend $7,000, that $3,000 is somewhere else that we can allocate. I think those are things that, I don't know what this director, as far as, they're obviously, they're probably not the one picking out the point of sale system and, a lot of that stuff, but like, T-shirts and hats and costs of things, yes, there's a budget, but, as long as people are encouraged that, falling underneath that budget opens up more money for possibly somewhere else that it's needed.
Right, right.
Because I would hate to spend $400,000 on museum exhibits because someone has $400,000 in their head when they could have maybe done it just as effective for $200,000. I just think people see that budget, that number, and that's their end.
Yep. Yep. And you can throw things out to the community. Put it out there. Hey, we're looking for people to pitch in and donate money for, boom.
Yeah,
People want to be involved.
Yeah,
People want
you
to
like-
give. They want to understand the purpose and things like that.
yeah. We start a GoFundMe for helping out for the rodeo or helping out for fireworks or helping out, had we, I see that, they're asking for money for the planters, which we haven't gotten to yet, but that's another one of those things that we could have had a GoFundMe for the planters had we known that the budget was going to fall short and we might not be able, to look at some future projects. If we know that we're going to be tight, then that's something that tourism person can say, hey, let's help get money for fireworks this year. Let's help.
I have a suggestion that might, at least in some small way, address some of the discussion here. I've had my own concerns about fireworks, frankly, and it's just a thought, but you could reduce that fireworks spend by $4,000 and redirect that toward your miscellaneous line and give you a little bit additional for miscellaneous expenses. And it's kind of I think maybe a coincidence, but the total fireworks fee was what, 17? I think it was.
Just south of that, right?
Divided by 2 is 8,500. So if you reduce your fireworks budget by $4,000, you're at half of the fireworks.
Right.
And that might be a way to communicate, hey, look, we're willing to fund half the fireworks, help have general fund take the rest. We have taken some donations this year also.
And we used to have an alderman, Carol Johnson, she was the champion of the fireworks fundraiser. And she would go literally door to door and make that happen every year. And so, losing her was a big hit, and that's part of the reason why tourism of the past said, we'll help fund this, because they knew that she was moving on. So,
So then-
having a champion.
Well, I'm saying,
recruited
could the
like that-
partnership then start a GoFundMe page on June 26th this year? And
too late.
Well, I mean, but,
For next year.
yeah, for next year, to be able to say like, hey, to all you people that live in Pacific, and, you know, you can spread that stuff to Eureka Peeps, that's, you know, it goes all over the St. Louis area, and you find people that, you know, $6, $10, but all of those people, I mean, that's how some of these kids, that's lemonade stand gets knocked down, and they end up with $12,000 in a GoFundMe page. You know, that's how that stuff happens. But I think, you know, the the tourism can provide only so much as far as, you know, just entertainment. You know, people are getting a free band, they're getting the car show, they're getting, you know, a lot of things going on. I think it's a lot to say, hey, you know, we're footing $12,600 for fireworks, and that means we can't do all of these. So when Joni on the Pacific page is throwing a fit about what tourism people do because there's still no banners hung up, you know, were you at the fireworks? Did you donate towards the fireworks? I mean, those are things that I think that there's people that can step up. There's a lot of large businesses in this town, and they're very generous with the gift baskets and things when the chamber has fundraisers, and they would probably step up and help with something like that, but they don't know that it's needed. And if we need it, then now's the time to raise our hand and say, hey, you know, we'd love to be able to give you $12,000 for fireworks, but we can only give you $8,000 for fireworks. You guys are going to need to do the rest.
Let's think about this in another little bit of a twist, and that is we're all focused on expenses. Let's focus on revenues for a minute. I believe there are VRBOs that exist that are not paying their tourism tax. And cracking down on that, making everybody understand the importance of it, because if they pay, it helps them in the long run because we're driving traffic to their place, potentially. So
I'm not going to lie, I snoop and I look for them.
I still
And I
have mine
do.
from last
And
year. I
the
have to
problem
pay.
is, you know, the one that's across from the hotel, she has 5 listings, but she's not in Pacific city limits. You know, there's a few that are in Gray Summit. Those are not.
yeah, they have to be in the city
Yeah,
limits, right?
and so unfortunately, I just had a meeting with a guy the other day that wanted to open up an Airbnb and was asking me things, and I believe he even talked to Kim, because I said, have you talked to Kim to make sure that you're set up with your taxes and that you're collecting these things? And, you know, he had said yes, but you know, anytime somebody asks me, that's the first thing I tell them, but there's really not that many
Yeah,
in Pacific.
yeah, there's not. I don't, other than you, I don't know of anybody in the Pacific.
I'm just saying we need to police
But I
it.
think that there will start to be more, because
Oh, I
I
absolutely
feel,
think
I
there's
feel
gonna
like,
be more. If the city will approve it, there's definitely gonna be more. Yeah.
but I do think encouraging that and making sure that people know, I mean, we had hit a hiccup and ended up thinking that we were paying and found out that we weren't, and we ended up having a whole back year to pay.
Yeah.
But we did it because that's what's right, and I think if people are bringing people in, just the hotels are expected to pay, then it should be known that, but that's a hard thing to police.
Yeah. I still owe the city for last year, for the months that I was open, because I'm no longer open. Haven't been open since October.
But I think encouraging those things, because not everybody wants to stay at a hotel.
Yeah.
They like to have a house all to themselves where their kids can run around and scream and, you know.
So going back to this, are we suggesting that that's what we do is cut?
Yeah, I agree with Steve. I think we cut fireworks down
If the city
to,
doesn't want that to be cut, then the city can ante up.
I agree.
yeah. So I make a motion to amend the
proposed
budget,
draft.
the proposed, yes, the draft, and reduce the fireworks to 8,500.
And then reallocate?
And reallocate that.
And
Yes.
reallocate that into miscellaneous.
And do we want to change, well, I don't know if we need to change it to tourism, but I mean, I understand why you guys were saying that, is we want to really spend it on tourism.
Yeah, I would like to propose changing the name. Jen, if you want to propose.
Yeah, I
something.
mean, what is this river walk? Does that even have a relevance anymore? Can we just eliminate this river walk and replace that with tourism?
I had asked that same question, but Steve wants to leave it on
Okay.
there because it references past expenses.
Oh, okay.
Sure, sure.
So you just want a line item that says tourism,
Yeah.
just tourism? Or,
Tourism Committee?
Yeah, I would think tourism committee would be.
Kim, you're good at this, what do you think?
That'd be a little more specific.
Yeah, tourism commission, whatever you want to change it.
I mean, it's supposed to all be tourism, but, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think then that way, anybody that's looking at the budget knows that, okay, it's not really miscellaneous. That's money that we're setting aside to make sure that anybody that is coming to us with projects,
And things we want to get done,
yeah.
or propose to the Board
Yeah.
of Aldermen. Good, that's a good feel, I appreciate that.
All right.
I did have a question,
Did
what
we get
happened to
a-
our old sign?
Did we get a
Maybe
motion or
that's
a
the money.
second?
What
I
happened to
made
the
a
old
motion.
sign?
second. Yeah, Jen, I need a second.
Okay, I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay.
Sorry, she can second. I don't care. Somebody can second.
And then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
What happened to our old sign? That we took down, what happened to the old sign?
What old sign?
The highway sign.
The highways, our
Oh.
billboard,
This way.
sorry.
So it is in storage right now at the city shed until it's determined what's going to be used for or sold or whatever.
Will those go into the general funds of the city,
If it was sold.
or those come
I
to
would-
tourism?
I would think it'd go to tourism.
Yeah, yes.
So does that mean we need to get moving on selling it? So we have
That
some
would be,
money?
There you
that would
go.
absolutely be my recommendation, because there was a suggestion that it would go to the Red Cedar property and be used, but it wasn't a very good high resolution. Here, it wouldn't be there either. And it's a little closer to the road, so it'd be actually even worse. So, where it's a nice thought to be able to repurpose it somewhere, and there is interest in the part of the chamber
Oh,
that
good.
they would put it on the building. But again, it's not a good resolution for close proximity. I
On the
wouldn't,
roof,
I
they're
wouldn't,
gonna put it on the roof?
I wouldn't recommend it. Because today, your technology is so much greater.
That's why we have to get rid of it.
I would
That's what I'm saying,
suggest,
let's just
Now's
sell
the
it
time.
while we can sell it.
Put it
I mean,
on, put it on Craigslist,
flea
put it
market
on
sign.
Marketplace.
I was thinking, I mean, I guess it seems to me that it's so old tech, is it
Right.
worth almost anything?
well,
I mean,
to somebody somewhere.
Yeah, somebody somewhere might,
Yeah, it was working for us.
Who wants a deal,
Yeah.
because you're not going to get a whole lot for it, I don't think. But it would be worth
Yeah,
looking into.
how do we do that? Is that
You would
something-
I would think you would make a motion in a second to make a recommendation to the board to sell it.
Yeah, it would need to be declared surplus property, and then we dispose of it via online auctions.
okay?
Do we make a motion to ask the board to
Sure.
do that?
Yes, yeah, that'd be fine.
Make
Second
board-
it.
All right,
I make that motion.
I
yeah.
second.
All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Because at some point it becomes
yeah.
throwaway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but not now. I mean, we can show.
No, you're right.
Or
You know,
you've got somebody that's
within the
got a
past
sign
6
like
months,
that
it was
doesn't have
working.
parts anymore that are available, and
Yep.
5 years
Yep.
from now, when
Use it
it's
for
dust
parts.
covered,
Yeah.
it'll be.
Get 9 cents a
Move it
pound.
down the highway.
There
to
you go,
cities
yeah.
that don't- that, you
don't
know,
set it
less
outside too long, it'll go disappearing.
That's a good question.
All right, so then are we to a position where we,
So we probably need a motion to approve the amended budget.
all right,
I make a motion that we do that.
all right, I second. And are we done with the budget?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay, we're done.
All right, new business. Request from the partnership for planters to be placed on First and St. Louis Street. I believe this was for 4 planters. And from what I believe I heard was that she was thinning out some of the other, oh, here we go. Should I read this?
You can read
Or does
the middle
everybody-
of it At least,
Okay.
I sent
the-
it out to everyone, yeah.
the
Yeah,
details.
I've read it
Okay.
already.
The cost of the planters is $225 each, asking for a total of 4 at $900. Also an additional $250 for soil. Members of the partnership will plant the planters with drought-resistant plants.
I'm curious as to how 4 things for $250 each can equal $900.
And then, yeah, and then
Right.
then 225 for the dirt.
I think they were 225.
All right. And then obviously.
It should be 600. She's got her numbers all messed up.
Yeah, it's 6 plus the 250, so, yeah, it is mixed up, but I figured y'all would figure it out.
So that's 750 she's asking for.
So it's only 750 she's asking for, not 1150 or whatever. I first thought it was the
Yeah,
900
'cause-
plus the other. That's what I
Yes.
thought it was.
All right, so the total is 750?
Yeah.
I like that number better anyway.
Yeah, it's half of, almost half.
But I must say, I think that last year, her signs did a good job. I didn't find lots of cigarette butts in them. I feel like everybody kept theirs watered, except for me when I went out of town and my canna died.
Well, just
but-
let me know when you're gone.
Well, I think some kid or somebody must have smacked it, because I came back and it was knocked over. But that one that's right out on the corner there next to the alley, I just.
Wonder where she's putting these. I know it doesn't really matter. I'm just curious.
I believe that ProTech asked for one on their corner between them and D'Angelo's, so I
Got it, yep.
I don't know 110%, but then I think there was also 2 more on St. Louis Street,
Yeah.
and then there might be one on the other side of St. Louis Street next to Birdsong.
She says they're replaced along First Street and St. Louis Street.
Yeah. She had mentioned that there was, ProTech had asked last year, and she
Oh,
was
I
like.
missed that, the first line. So sorry.
So, all right, well, do we have a motion to approve?
Okay, wait a minute, so 225 times 4 is 900 plus
Right.
the 250.
Thought it was 250, okay.
Okay.
All right, that was my mistake. I thought it was
Oh, it is
250
9.
times.
Why did it
four,
come
so
up with
is
6?
1150.
So her 1150 is right.
Yeah, okay,
I liked the 750 better.
yeah, for sure.
I was
Do we
just-
have to approve it all?
Yeah, I think so. And the drought-resistant soil, and, I mean, I think she thinned out the planters and did them a little bit to make the plants go a little bit further to keep the expenses down. But,
Jennifer, were you talking to her? Was she going to put them on each corner?
all I remember was that ProTech had asked, hey, can we get one? And then I don't believe
Okay.
there was one next to Birdsong, and then I don't believe that there was one on the corner in front of the drapery place.
No, I don't think there's one there either.
And then I don't think there was one on the side by the railroad tracks, across from the little train depot,
There's on the one side by the insurance guy,
but not on the other.
but on the other.
I don't know if one would go there because it's a tight sidewalk with that air conditioning
that's-
unit, but
Okay.
Okay,
I'm not. But yeah, she had mentioned adding them to the corners.
okay.
So let's see, what did we end up with tourism, or tourism? We ended up with, what was in miscellaneous, 6?
10,000. We had
So the
6, but we
1150
added
that
4.
they're requesting, you would want to be taken from miscellaneous, is that correct? Not your 4,000 in the tourism?
No, we went the miscellaneous, put with the, do we have to keep miscellaneous separate? Or can we leave like $400 in miscellaneous?
No, you can do whatever
I
you want.
thought we were putting the whole 10 into a new
I
one
thought so
and
too,
getting
but
rid
I
of
think we should
miscellaneous.
maintain-
Getting
Or
rid of
just renaming
miscellaneous.
miscellaneous. Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. I mean, keep the line there, but we don't want any dollars there this year.
Okay,
Okay, hold up. So we're taking miscellaneous down to 0, and we're adding this new line that says Tourism Commission, and that's going to be
Whatever
Correct.
works best for
10?
you.
Okay.
If a
All
rename
right,
works,
Now I'm with you guys, okay.
I don't know how it works historically
That's
if you
fine, we
look
can do
back.
that.
okay, so then this 1150 will come out of that,
You always have to show it on your reports. but you gotta have it
Miscellaneous,
there.
or your
Okay.
tourism, new tourism line.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So then I make a motion to approve the 1150 for the planters.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Discussion? Ann?
I'm abstaining. I kind of think it's right now when we have no money that we shouldn't be spending it.
We have 10,000.
Well,
This is in this year's
we
budget.
haven't even started that.
But what's nice is I think once these are done.
This is coming out of this
Then that end of
This year's
town is
budget.
done, and then next year, as more businesses grow on the west side, then it gives the ability to, maybe just do 4 a year and slowly take over the whole town.
Now, we can't give her those funds now, though, can we? Because we don't have the dollars? Because we
What?
have only 468?
No, you're looking at Steve just corrected me. This
This
would
would be
actually be
this
out of
year's.
this year's budget,
You're still in the
not
last quarter.
next year's
of this year.
budget. But we've already spent $6,500 over what we had budgeted for the miscellaneous account in this current fiscal year. We budget 6,000, it says here we spent 12,576, and then I guess we spent another 2,650 on advertising.
We don't have the money. We can't approve it then,
Oh,
right? Steve, can't approve it, we don't have the money. Or do we take it from something else?
We have money in reserve, yes. It really, without getting into the detail of what was actually spent in that miscellaneous line, I'm really not sure. There's no fireworks spending in there. It wouldn't have been,
And I don't know what that
yeah.
is.
Can you do it? Yes, you can. You do have the reserves. Is it? I'm just curious myself as to where we went over in that miscellaneous, because typically we don't, frankly. Was there something unexpected?
We had to do the sign?
Might have been Christmas lights. Maybe?
Oh.
we
Maybe?
did do more Christmas lights this year, didn't we?
Maybe? Or was that the year before?
Yeah, but we didn't do that much. I can't remember.
No, and we did what we did last year.
Plus mine went on someone else's this year. Because you did mine the first year,
Yeah.
and then I was out of business this past Christmas, so you had those extra for somebody.
Well, and does that, I thought that came out of,
I mean, here's the other thing. Will she wait till July 1 to get a check? Then it's in this budget.
That's what I was asking, yeah, because it's,
I don't know if, I don't know.
It's not that I don't want to do it, I just.
Yeah, I mean,
don't
July
think
1
it's
is-
a terribly fiscal responsible thing to do right now, until we know more about where that budget's actually going to end up.
well, and then what that 12,000 was.
well, do you want to table it to the next?
Yeah.
Just say we can't respond this month?
Yeah, because I'd hate to say waiting
Understand what
till
miscellaneous
July
is.
if it's something that there was an error or something was put in the wrong line item and,
Do we actually have to be here physically to vote on something?
How
Or-
about I run a detail on that miscellaneous and I'll send it out to you guys, and then you guys can at least get a heads up on that.
okay.
Okay. But can we like vote, like, the next week
Proxy
on
or
it?
something on it, to
You-
agree to
you
this
could-
before the next meeting.
You could
which is
agree
asking.
to it with a not-to-exceed dollar amount.
Yeah.
No,
Like
I'm
maybe
saying,
if we
once
say-
Kim comes back and she gives us the information of what it was, and we say, okay, whatever,
So to do an email vote, we'd have to have a meeting for that.
okay, that's what my
Yeah,
question was.
we really don't want to do
Well,
that.
and worst
Just
case,
table it for, till
Yeah.
next month.
We can table it.
and worst case, if it comes down to, they half, then they would live with 2 planters.
Exactly.
Do we need
Okay,
to,
so Jen, are you resending your vote?
Yes.
do we need to make
We'll
a
wait.
motion to put it off to next time, or no?
I make a motion to move the planters for the partnership to the following meeting next month,
I'll second.
which I feel like we've had all of our Red Cedar updates today already.
All your what?
We've had
Next
all of
line
the Red
item.
Cedar updates already.
No, you haven't.
Kidding, right?
Okay. But I'll make it
So
fast.
when's our next meeting supposed to be?
Does June 7th work for everyone? I know things start to get crazy in June.
So far, so good.
Works for me.
June 7th? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that works better.
My thing
for
is,
me.
I work for a company now, so if I can get away, I can get away.
So it'll be, next meeting's June 7th.
Yes.
Okay.
Would it help you if we moved it a little bit later? Just
No,
with the
so far
time?
it's worked, other than like last month I had to take it because I was dual tasking. I had you guys on one and I had the company on the other, so.
Naturally occurring would have been the 14th, I think, but 50
Oh.
years ago, I got married and I'm going to be out of town.
And I can't make the 14th.
And
either.
I was going to say, and I saw
I
that,
can't do
and
the 14th.
Oh, June 14th. She can't do June 14th.
I have an all-day-long.
and I
law
was going to
seminar.
say, I know I'm on the 14th was not going to work.
Does the 7th work?
Yes. Sorry, I was looking at my calendar wrong, but yes, the 7th is right. That's good. Okay, Red Cedar update.
All right, here we go. So just to give you some updates on the progress inside and out. Site foundation walls for the future pavilion are 70% complete right now. The new Ameren primary feed for electric has been installed. Right now, they're working inside on the interior drywall. It's finished and sanded and ready for paint. The tile flooring and wall work will start next week. As far as their scheduling, interior renovations are scheduled to be completed July 22. And then that's when Derek Pryor can start building exhibits. So it's not that it'll open to the public then, but he can start his process. And then exterior site work should be finished mid-August. So with that, all the paving will be done all across both the old Wintech building, which are Parks and Rec now, all the way down in front of Red Cedar. The other thing I wanted to tell you is, when you step in the building, you see the old, okay, that moves into new, right? Because we got the new addition in the back. And it's just it's a tremendous feeling now. So it's really been done right, and I can't wait for you all to be able to go in there and take a tour. You're going to really be impressed. That's it.
All right.
That was good.
What's your
Was really
tentative
fast.
opening date?
We hope to open in November and have the first exhibit come in December. That's the grant exhibit. So hopefully we're open to the public sometime in November. I'd like it to be before Thanksgiving personally.
Are you doing a Christmas tour this year?
I don't know, that's something I think we'll discuss.
That could definitely be a spot.
Yeah, last year, unfortunately, we couldn't get any information about any of the historic properties in town because they couldn't access any of their records. And so it wasn't really gonna. All right. I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
All in favor?
Something to keep in mind?
I need to get a limo